One of the things is the um, approval of minutes. So it is 7:03, and if Doug joins us, we can approve the minutes. All right, so call the meeting order at 7:03. I don't see anybody from the public, so we'll skip to item 3. We don't have Doug, so we're going to skip to item 4. And 2021 budget. And let's see, the claim host, we still don't have that ability, do we? So, all right, so Steve, I guess the floor is yours to talk about the 21 budget.
So did you send out the other paperwork that I sent you to the?
Yes.
Okay, so if you look at my my crappy sheet, I'll hold it up. The crappy.
Yeah, there you go. The crappy sheet.
That is my Bible. So what I did was, there's a couple of blanks have been filled in since we last met. I kept all the budgets and all the articles the same as they were voted on at town meeting. So I'm pretty confident that we go into November town meeting, keeping all of the budgets the same, no cuts, no more money for capital, unfortunately, but I think that we're okay. Oh, here's Doug, good.
There's Doug.
There's Doug. So I think we also have a little bit of, if you go to page 2 of my crappy sheet, what the state has told us is that they're holding state aid basically at last year's level.
Doug, I say, let me jump in here. Doug, you're muted and no video.
No. Muting may be a good thing.
Some of us like, I was going to say, beat me to the punch line, Steve.
Oh, sorry, Steve, go ahead.
So we have been, the state has told us all of our delegation and ANF has actually come out, and at every seminar, webinar I've been on is that the major accounts, which is Chapter 70 and unrestricted local aid, will be, it currently will be funded through the end of the calendar year at fiscal year 2020 numbers. So that's why that number, I'm holding it flat. I'm believing what the state is saying right now on that, and we'll take what there, because that's the only money and number I have. School building assistance stays the same. Local receipts, where we had projected, when we first put this together, about 7.25 million. When we did this pre-COVID days, we have cut that down to 6.25 million for a couple of reasons. A, I remain concerned on local hotel and meals taxes, okay? Normally that's close to $800,000 a year. Kevin, correct me if I'm wrong, I don't think we've received anything on hotel and meals taxes since probably March.
That's correct.
Yeah, so we didn't even get the fourth quarter for fiscal year 2020. And I think, as I have mentioned to some of you before, the state isn't even collecting it from the restaurant tiers. I don't know about the hotels, but from the restaurant tiers, they don't even have to submit it to the state until the end of December for this year, which I think was a crazy thing that they did in the law. And I've told my delegation that, that they're still collecting it from the consumer. You know what's going to happen is restaurants are going to use it, and we'll never see it, and you'll never see it, and we'll never see it. But I digress. So those two add up for almost $800,000 a year. So basically, we're cutting $1 million, or close to $1 million from, in my opinion, from local receipts. If I'm wrong, and I'm often wrong on this, I'm often chicken little, I will be thrilled, which means that we will just replenish a little bit quicker. But I think when you flush everything out, that means that I'm suggesting that we use $2 million of free cash to balance the budget this year. take into effect that we know our new growth number is, and that's been certified at a little over $1.2 million. The good part about that number is that only, I believe, 360,000 of it or so is from the power from National Grid. So as we talked before, we thought there might be a delay on that big number coming in. So that's a good thing, that there still might be more money out there that'll trickle in over the next few years. So when we run all that out, when we use $2 million in free cash, we keep all the other budgets the same. You know, we might not need the whole 2 million, but who knows? I think DOR will be pretty happy with that. I think, and they've been happy in the past. The other unknown entity out there, or two other unknown entities out there is the CARES Act. Wakefield is allotted $2.4 million in the CARES Act, and this is money from the federal bailout, which could be utilized to cover COVID expenses. Keyword being expenses. We've submitted what, Kevin? Is it 641,000? Does it sound right? Or
Yes.
we've submitted 641,000. We are looking to replenish that through FEMA to put it back into that bucket. There is a lot of discussion at ANF, or there was a lot of discussion at ANF at the state level, that the CARES Act money could be used for revenue replacement, for plugging the revenue hole. That still hasn't been approved by the federal regulations. I'm hoping that happens. If that happens, then that would certainly be a big help. But so that's something in the back of my mind. The other item in the back of my mind, or the other two, one is the potential for 9C cuts. I'm hoping that that doesn't happen, but that is always a case. And 9C cuts would be where the legislature would cut local aid. I'm hoping that they don't do that. That would be really hard for them, really hard for cities and towns, and I'm sure our delegation will be against it. Our state senator tells me that he still thinks we'll get increased money in Chapter 70 at all, but it's nice to hear it. And the other item is, and Kevin and I have talked about this, and Dan too, is that embedded in our budget is $1.6 million, I believe, in OPEB. I am saying that we leave that in the account, and that we then we don't appropriate it, and we do it that way. Dan, I think I have the.
I just claimed it.
Okay, great. You got it too then. Okay.
Yeah, I did.
Okay.
Welcome, Doug and Jim. Okay.
So all in all, that's what I'm thinking right now. I do believe that income will come in a little bit higher, but I always believe that. And right now, I think free cash is right around 7 million. Using 2 would be back down to 5. We'd still have 3 million in stabilization, $500,000 in sped stabilization, and I would hope that we would replenish that at the end of fiscal year 21. However, who knows?
Yeah. So I'm going to attempt to share a screen because I put these new numbers in.
Dan and Steve, there was an attachment that didn't come through for me on the invite. The stuff from Dan through Steve.
Yeah, that was the PDF that didn't work.
No, I got a 9-page PDF. There was a second item.
Yeah, you know what that was? That was the agenda.
That was just the agenda, Jim.
Okay, great. All set. Thanks.
Yep. Hopefully you guys can see this screen.
Yeah, I can see it.
Okay, great. So what I did was adjust a couple spots. So I went ahead and for local receipts there. I knocked that down to 6250. I had 7250.
Yeah.
I also did was move the income from National Grid from 21 to 22
Okay.
at 1.3 million. I think 1.3 million is still the right number.
We were counting on 1.6, so if 300,000 or so came this year, then yeah, that would be hopefully a good number.
Okay. So, let's see. Oh, we had to use some free cash here to get us to a 0. Well, I got 7 million in free cash. 7011. I figured that's close enough.
Yeah.
And then our free cash drops to 6.6, but then it starts to go up. So we can handle the 625 based on my assumptions on income and expense. So for example, if you look at total income, it goes up 4.9% because of National Grid, and then it runs out at about 4% a year the rest of the way, which means our budget, and I don't see those percentages there. Our cost budget is, I've got it set up for about a 3% and change going out versus income at about 4. So we can handle that as long as my numbers over here under our spending. For example, I have the schools for 22 at 4%, and then drop into 3 like everybody else. Again, it all goes back to the assumptions. What are we going to do with that? And on new growth, other than the blip of National Grid, I have that running at 3% increases per year, and state aid at 4. And then here's the real question. If we have a big drop in local receipts for 21, right now I just have it going up 4%. But I got to believe it's going to do better than that. There's got to be a rebound here, right?
I would agree, yeah. Whether it's 22 or 23.
Well, even if I just make it 10, okay, that still helps us out. We still have our expenditures versus our income are less by a significant amount, and our free cash will grow.
Okay.
So at 6250, I think we're still okay. But again, it assumes the state aid at your 10,000,008, and then in 23, state aid goes up 4% thereafter. Oh, Doug, are you talking to us, Doug? Your audio is really, really bad. It sounds like a little bird chirping. We can't understand you, Doug.
I have a question while Doug's working on his audio. What did you do with the capital budget on the, is it growing off of the reduced base?
Yes, I'm not replenishing
So
that.
so it's not restored.
And that's a good point. Maybe what
Yeah.
I should do, oh, where's capital? Here it is. So with capital, I would need something like a 75% increase in 1 year, I think, to get us back up somewhere close. Well, that's $1.7 million. So maybe, well, that might not be unreasonable.
See, just to see what the numbers look like.
Yeah. So we still have deficit spending for a while, but then it creeps back up. So yeah, if we replenish the capital to $1.8 million, let's call it, we can do that.
Well, if that's our deficit spending, that's not so bad.
No, it isn't. That's what I'm saying. It's not that bad. And the key though goes back here with National Grid.
Right, right. Well, they are still working. I mean, they're still working, so.
So you're saying that the difference is that the National Grid uptick for this 1 year, 22,
Yeah,
basically?
Yeah,
that's what's saving our butt.
National Grid had indicated that the new growth from their project, once completed, was $1.6 million. This year's new growth number of $1.2 million, I don't know, Jim, you might have come on a little later, about 300,000 of that is National Grid.
Yep,
So,
I heard you say that.
all right, so that's adding that back in there. The other thing about new growth is there's a lot of new construction that's being proposed right now.
Right.
So that is, for our purposes on this chart, that's very helpful.
Oh, yeah, so let's assume
I'll
that,
get beaten up at other boards for this.
if I just give ourselves an extra 200,000 on new growth, I mean, that just changes everything for the better.
Yeah.
Nope. Doug's microphone.
Doug, you're on chipmunk mode, I think.
You sound like a chipmunk. Alvin!
Use dial-in, Alvin, come on.
Actually, Doug, if you just call in, there's a call-in number as part of the invitation. Turn off your microphone and call in with the phone.
Sure, I'll do that now, assuming you can't hear me.
No, you sound good now.
Now we hear you, perfect.
Yeah, you sound great.
Yeah.
No, I switched which USB port it was in. I guess the only question I have for you, Dan, is like in terms of the current, like the school spending that we have baked in, did that account for the new contract? And then the issue I have is their contract calls. They sort of backloaded their raises, so they backloaded them. They went 2% this year, but they're 2.5% in subsequent years, which means, the 2.5 really means 3.5 because of all the step nonsense that goes on. And so I think we might be deluding ourselves if we think fiscal 22 is coming in at 4 and fiscal 23. Just because if that's the case, you're going to have it all to the teachers.
Yeah. Let's go ahead and change the 4% for 22 to 5. And we still survive.
Okay.
If I change 23 for 5 as well, which is the third year of the contract, we still survive.
And then I would run the rest of the years out at 4 then as well,
You would?
to be realistic.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
All right, let's see what happens when I do that. Oh, got a little tighter. That's a little tighter.
But
We don't recover until 26 from deficit spending.
but we still survive.
We survive because we got 7 million in the kitty now.
Yeah.
We're going to take 2 million out right here.
Yeah.
And then we'll have to take out another 2.5 million. So we'll be at about 2.5 million. And then we go positive.
Right, assuming we don't replenish.
Right, yeah. And that should be consistent with what I have going down here. Stabilization, yeah, so our reserve will drop down to about 8% of our budget and then start going back up again.
Okay.
And again, I left this alone, $1,675,000 for OPEB.
Yeah.
All right. So
And where's capital in the future?
I bumped it back up. Let me go back to capital. I bumped it back up to $1,008,000 in 22, and then it goes up beyond that. I mean, we can push this up a little bit further.
No, it's fine. I just didn't know, you had said it, I didn't see it.
Yeah, so let me make this, let's say 95%. What does that do? So now I'm back up to 2 million.
Yep.
And we still make it. We still survive. Our free cash gets down to what the bottom was, looks like about 4.8 million.
Yeah.
But I also add some in here. This is purely arbitrary. Under, Chicken Little versus the Optimist versus the middle of the road. So if I turn in the Chicken Little, our free cash does get down to about about 1.8 million.
Yeah.
And if I recall, some 15 years ago, I don't think we had 1.8 million in free cash.
We would have been thrilled.
Yeah, we would have been thrilled. Okay. Yeah, I think if Steve's numbers come through, we'll be okay. Not great, but okay. Anything else you want to see on this spreadsheet?
Oh.
Now, is there anything we could go after? Like if other towns are struggling much more than we are, is there something that we would want to go and try and, is there some sort of recruiting effort you'd want to put in to try and spend money somewhere else? And granted, I know that's not our call, that's the council and Steve, but if you were to think of trying to either promote either downtown or attract some sense of businesses or do some huge revitalization project. Like I saw a group of firemen, the fire prevention officer and whatnot at Alano's, and I was tempted to roll my window down and say, let it burn. But not at Alano's, on my bed at Molise. No, sorry, Alano's.
Well, I think.
But is there something that we would want to think about, given that we are in a, granted, I know our position is weaker than it was a year ago, but everybody's in. Is this an opportunity to try and go and get something or come to some sort of deal with our downtown people or something along those lines?
I think you'll see a lot of work in that, and I think yes, they're very close to start filing for the revitalization of the old Napa auto place and that thing next door, which is right across from Galvin. If you know what I mean?
Oh, the one with the tree growing inside it?
Yes. That's already been under agreement and sold. So that's going to be redone. And I think you'll see us start moving down the road. And hopefully the new economic development team is going to help us with that and really focus on it. Yes, I'm throwing some eggs in that basket.
Okay. Anybody else on the 21 budget? I'm going to back up since now we have a quorum. And I've sent out the minutes. I hope everybody's had a chance to take a look at them. And I'd like to entertain a motion to approve those minutes. This is
Motion to approve.
Doug. Thank you, Doug. And Joanne? In a second.
Yes.
Very good. Any discussion on the minutes? Hearing none. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
And Doug's aye. That's unanimous. Mr. Secretary.
Got it.
And then the other thing you have here is a regular town meeting, November 7th. I assume that's been publicly announced, not just to,
Yes, that was voted on by the council Monday night because they set the date, and that has already been advertised, and yes.
or back at the Galvin. So are
No,
we
no,
gonna have
no, we'll be back that'll be at the high school.
the high school?
That'll be socially distanced at the high school field house.
Okay.
Yeah.
So are we gonna bring in extra heaters this time versus AC?
We do not have to bring in AC heaters for the gym. I think the gym will be fine because it does have heat. The field house. We will do a tent, and I will bring in heaters for the tent outside if people feel that that's a little bit better for them.
Okay. I thought this sidebar here, I thought the June town meeting went extremely well. That air conditioning units were absolutely key. That was good.
It was. I think it'll be a good 50 degrees colder than it was that day.
Yeah, at least guaranteed. Guaranteed.
Yeah, I'm hoping actually for a fairly short agenda, maybe 9 or 10 items. One of the larger items on that, since we're talking about it, will be the high school feasibility study, which will be bonded and will roll into a debt exclusion if and when that happens. So that will be probably the biggest item there.
In terms of budget items.
But a budget item. Another item that may come up, which will also be bonded, and we will flip it at some point, that Old Woods subdivision that we spoke about, the legal suit against the town for alleged contamination, that may be coming to a settlement.
Oh, really? So if it does come to a settlement, was that something that'll be come before the finance committee
Well, absolutely.
when we meet?
When we meet, yes.
Okay.
That will come before the finance committee, and it will be, I will tell you that I will be as candid as I can, but it will be a little cryptic because we are still in a legal suit, a lawsuit on it, so. Just forewarned.
Yeah. So in terms of those items, I don't really have to add anything to the forecast here to the spreadsheet for anything big like, because those are both bonded.
Yeah.
Okay.
Can we talk about bonds a little bit, particularly while Doug is here?
Yeah, sure.
So, Doug, as you know, we did approve a lot of items at the June town meeting that are bonded, the road bond, and some past meetings that we had as well, the public safety building, which we won. So we have been talking about whether we should bond right now as much as we can because rates are low. Kevin and I and John McCarthy and bond counsel, should we do some banning of portions of it and then not have to pay the principal right away? So what's your prognosis on bonds? What should we be doing? Is that a good question, Kevin?
That's
Is that what you want?
Yes.
Sure. I mean, I think Joanne and I can both answer, like, you know,
Joanne,
you should be issuing as many if you can issue 30-year bonds now, Steve, do it.
Okay. That's what bond counsel said. Okay. I should borrow more.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, I'd borrow anything you could
Whatever
right now
legally.
because
Right.
you're never going to get it much cheaper.
So do you think it'll stay this way for a couple of years?
Probably, but you shouldn't count on that.
Okay. All right. Okay.
Yeah. The Fed.
I mean, Joanne, you can talk to this as well, but like,
Lower for longer, but that's until numbers,
You know, the election too.
we can't have it both, ways. You know, I think right now the numbers suggest that you know, the economy didn't go as low as we thought it might, knock on wood, thank God. And, but on the flip side, you know, it's still a long recovery for the sectors that have been impacted. And so, you know, as I said, you know, now's the time. The interest rates will go up at some point, and it's just a question of how quickly and when they do, it means the economy is picking up again. So we all hope for that to happen sooner rather than later.
Right. Okay.
I mean, I would also keep your local receipts number. I wouldn't go forecasting that $1 million to come back anytime soon.
Right.
Right.
It'll be higher a little next year, but yeah, I don't know.
So that raises a really good question in my mind, because Kevin Gill and I have got the numbers on the retirement system. We just got a valuation and we're asking PARAC for some new numbers. And we do have a significant unfunded liability. We have a home rule petition that's been passed about, I don't know, 20 years ago now. And I'm wondering if it's time for us to look at a pension obligation bond. It's a taxable muni. What's the taxable muni rate these days? You know, 275?
It's lower probably. But I don't, yeah, I mean, I guess I don't love doing that. Like just as a general rule, it's not so much I don't love investing in them. I wouldn't, you know, it's like, it'd be like going, you know, I know that there's a push to, you know, insure and sort of get rid of your pension liabilities as much as possible. And, you know, a lot of corporates pushing for annuitization, but it seems like, you know, the time you should do that is when rates are high. You shouldn't do that when you're faced with, like, you know, when you're faced with this huge shortfall. Do I think that is that shortfall recover in the next 17 years? Yeah, probably.
Yeah, so just to give you a little perspective what I'm talking about, I'm gonna do the share screen again if I can make it work. Zoom. Share screen. There. And share. Hopefully you guys can see this. There's two columns here because PARAC was looking at making some changes, but our unfunded liability is going to be about $61 million. And we're paying that off with an assumed rate of 7.5%. The retirement system has earned on average over the last 35 years about 9%. I expect it'll continue to earn on average something over 8%. And the whole idea of a pension obligation bond is to take that $60 million that the bond is, and you're paying 2.5 or 275, investing it with the state and prim, and earning 7.5 or whatever you can earn. So it's an interest arbitrage. A few communities have done it. Worcester has done it, and so has Brockton. And I'm thinking about that $60 million and saying, if I can save, just 4% a year on that, that's $2.5 million in interest charges we don't have to pay over the long term. That's what I'm thinking about.
Yeah, the only problem with the assumption of the historical of 9 is you've done it under a dramatically shrinking interest rate environment for them. Also, like the state in particular is like very heavily overweight sort of private equity and to some degree hedge funds, less so hedge fund, but much more of the private equity space. And the question is are you get those returns going forward? And, I think we're all still using that assumption and we're all still hoping for, I think most of my pension clients are hoping for 7 now, even though the state's pretty aggressively invested. Yeah, I think you could certainly assume 5, and if you're only paying 2 3/4, then
you're still going to get the arbitrage.
You're likely to end up ahead.
Yeah. Well, right. NEPC is the investment consultant for the state, and right now their 20-year forecast for based on the asset allocation they have today is 7.31%.
Sure. That's as good a guess as anybody.
Anyway, it's a thought. It's a thought.
it's not, and again, it's not a, the question is if you do a $60 million bond, do you feel like does that put us in a bind ratings wise? And does it put us in a bond? I mean, to be fair, Dan, like my concern over municipal pensions is, my gut feeling 30 years from now, I think there's a tremendous risk that that they get cut sort of. They're definitely going to get cut in some municipalities. Hopefully they don't get cut here.
Yeah.
But-
And the other big risk about the pension obligation bond is that your amortization payments are now fixed, whereas while in a pension, we've got a ton of flexibility. We can lengthen it, we can shorten it, we can modify whatever payments, there's no penalty. We have tremendous flexibility. So the trade-off is saving, $1 million, $2 million a year versus having to be forced to make those bond payments.
Yeah.
Any other thoughts? Kevin, you said something about 22 and retirement. You wanted to talk about it?
Well, no, I thought that, the emails we had going back and forth between Tarek, you and myself, with regards to possibly lowering fiscal 22 and fiscal 23's impact to the town, instead of an 8% increasing budget
22.
over those 2 years. We could lower it to maybe like a 5 or a 6%, and then for those 2 years, and then increase it slightly for the out years. And just to get people's thoughts on, with regards to any savings that you may have with regards to doing something like that, what would be the plan on the savings? Are we going to hold that in reserves, or is it just going to be something that is going to be spent somewhere else?
Good point.
Yeah. I wouldn't cut them.
Yeah, right now, I think for 22 or for 21, we're scheduled for a 7.18% increase over 20. And we're looking at potential 8% increase from to 22 over 21. I think we can survive the 8% based on these numbers.
Right. Yeah, looking at the numbers that you presented tonight, yes.
All right. Well, Kevin and I can take that offline.
I like the 5. I like the 5%.
Oh, you don't count.
Like it. That's all right.
Aren't you in the pension, Steve? You want them to pay in.
I know, but
Yeah, that's true. That's true. This is your security we're talking
Doug,
about.
you told me I had 30 years, so I think I'm okay.
Yeah, I mean, Doug's telling me, like, I'm not sure you're getting that. Like, good thing you don't work for the city of Chicago.
Or Milwaukee County, or yeah, San
Yeah.
Diego.
It's, but if they start rewriting them, they're going to start rewriting them everywhere. So that's the problem.
Yeah.
Have we seen a higher level of retirements, unexpected retirements this year? School retirements or otherwise?
I think that the jury's out on that yet still, but I would not be surprised that if we don't see a bunch.
Well, let's see how stage 3 vote goes.
But yeah, exactly. I talked to a teacher today that this is her last year. And she said that she's going to hang in there as of now, but it wasn't. It's not what she anticipated.
A very good friend of mine teaches biology. He's a professor up at UNH, and he retired 2 years earlier than expected. He said, "I'm not going to do this again this year. I'm done. I'm out of here." So in terms of teachers, we don't see that, but for the non-teachers, we haven't seen any extra retirements, but I think it's the teachers that are the most at risk.
Yeah. No.
Okay, let's see, I got nothing left on the agenda. So unless
While we have the chairman here, when do we, a couple of things are coming up. The chairman of the FinCom, we have two chairmen here. When do we want to meet with the whole finance committee for November town meeting? And I think we will be looking at, I'll be talking to my chair about a tri-board meeting as well. So I don't know if we want to have a finance committee meeting in the next couple of weeks to kind of give the lay of the land, or wait until the warrant is closed. And that's up to you guys to Jim Sullivan to figure out what he wants.
Right, so if, well, tri-board, when do we think tri-board would be, I guess? Is that before town meeting or after?
Hopefully that's before. So let's say in another month.
October.
I'll talk to my chair tomorrow.
Yeah, mid-October.
October, yeah.
So I was hoping that, we could have a meeting after this to just lay some groundwork with folks on, potential, line in the sand, what we think, what the forecasting committee let the forecasting group give an overall explanation to everyone for as we go into the fall, into their subcommittee meetings, so that there's a good understanding of how everybody should be marching towards, if you would, and just to try to keep as much information in front of the group as possible. Just a short meeting, I guess, at the end of the month or early October before the tri-board, but just kind of review what you went over, Dan. You all went over about the forecasting, and I asked Steve. I wanted to just get a little bit of a blurb out to the group to let them know how things are going so far, and try to get together again just to identify what the Steve is likely going to be talking to the department heads about, and then that way us all that help work subcommittees know in advance where we're at this particular stage, for so that the subcommittees again are all just trying to pull in the same direction. So I mean, if nobody's against it, I was hoping to do something after this meeting, again, just to, I'm not convinced I'll have new blood on the board yet with wrestling Mr. Carroll. And
I talked to him the other day. I told him to get moving.
I talked to him on Island last
Well,
week.
he's back now. He's back
He
now.
probably doesn't even remember that
He
conversation.
probably doesn't.
I think that's a good idea, Jim.
Careful, folks. This is what got the HRC in trouble.
Yeah,
Right?
yeah. No, yeah, go for it. Go for a meeting.
Yeah. All right. I'll talk to excuse me. I'll talk to Steve, and that's it. I just want to get some framework, get some info out in front of people, and always good to be informed and then held accountable. That's all.
Okay.
Do we have any major contracts up next year? Like, are we negotiating anything right now that's of import?
I believe the only contract that on the municipal side that is up next year is the clerical union, which is a small union, 10 or 12 people. So
that's not going to be.
It's not going to be a big issue. No.
Okay, good. Well, so we're locked in on a bunch of them. So.
Yeah.
Yeah, and particularly the schools, right? So that was a well, I'll call it a disaster last year, trying to get info out of them and work with them. So at least we know what it is now, right? They're all locked in union wise anyway. So that's kind of a fixed going forward for us for a year or two.
Maybe.
Well, I'm going to assume that.
Yeah.
All right.
There's an opening on the school committee though, so.
I saw that. I saw that. Yeah.
There is an opening. Okay.
Anybody have their hand up? I don't see anybody.
Well, I'd love to be on it. Can I be on both?
No.
No, I didn't think so.
Yeah. Good luck with that.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. All right, anything else, Steve? Steve, are you all set?
I'm very good, and thank you all for your hard work on this.
All right.
It's important.
Bye, guys.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank
I'll,
you.
entertain a motion to adjourn,
So moved.
and that's a
Second, Dave.
Doug for second. All in favor, turn off your computer screens.
Have a good night.
Yeah, have a good night.